All right, folks. Welcome to Friday Night Live here. As you can see behind me, the sun's still out, and I'm pretty stoked about that. Once I kind of get back into the routine of having, you know, 10 or 11 hours of daylight, everything will be in good order then. Got a bunch of updates, a bunch of things to talk about what we've been up to this last week. Um, I know I kind of left us in a bit of a funk with last week's live. I know I had kind of a rough couple of days following Primrose losing that foal, but I am happy to report that she has not had any complications. It does not look like she has, so that is good. The hormones that can control that apparently didn't really kick in. So, because mastitis, swelling infection of the udder, can be pretty serious. So I'm continuing to watch her, but she has let me uh, palpate around her udder basically without any protests. So she's doing good. And here after this live, I'm going to upload a video that I took today, just about a 2-minute video of static video, just me moving the sheep. Cut them across to a new pasture today with a little bit of a brushy corner for them to work on. And as Primrose was going through the new gate, she was literally kicking up her heels, and it was pretty cool. And it made me happy to see her because she could see that she was getting ready to be in a big spot compared to what she had just been in. So she she's doing all right, and I'm happy to report that. So last weekend I was at the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival, and that takes place in Bowling Green. And we got to catch up with a bunch of friends out there, which was nice. So that was Friday night and Saturday, and all day Sunday. I headed home Sunday afternoon, and it's a pretty good event. That didn't sound right. It is a pretty good event. Um, what I was wanting to say was it is an ideal event for somebody who can't do like huge conventions, because while it was really well attended and we have plenty of vendors, they hold it on a portion of Western Kentucky University campus in their big arena, like their riding arena. It's, Kentucky horses, all that good stuff. So there's plenty of room, um, plenty of room for everybody. I'm someone who is not a fan of crowds. So if you're not as into these more kind of densely packed situations, put Kentucky Sustainable Living on your radar, because it will. It looks like it's going to be happening twice a year. So let me take a pause here and say howdy, Hippocrates Garden. Hey, go take a shower. It's all right. We'll wait. We'll wait, and there's always a replay. Yeah, YouTube not always giving the notifications. I know I'm signed up for yours and many others, and it's hit and miss as to whether I get them. So, but thanks for popping in, Brian. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys here in a couple of weeks in the Camden area. I imagine we're gonna get into a shenanigan or two. At least I hope so. So like I said, the festival was great. I just had a little table there. I didn't have a speaking spot this time, so I got to mostly roam around, hang out at my table, talk to folks, catch up with Toolman Tim, catch up with my buddy Glenn, who we've hung out down in Texas before at Jack Spirko's gathering. Nicole Sauce was there. Jason Sparks is the fella who puts that on. One of the fellows who puts that on. They had a sheep butchering demo, all kinds of preparedness style bug out bag demos. Angry American, the fellow who wrote the Going Home book series, was there. He had a really nice talk, and I was able to make both of the talks that William Bond, the permaculture consultant, he's down in Texas now. You may know him from Billy Bond and Michelle, that's their son. And he is down in Texas now, restoring family land. And I actually got to catch up with him, go to both of his he had kind of like a permaculture 101 and then a soil science, and they were great. He packed a lot of information very efficiently into an hour spot, and I took a bunch of notes and ended up picking up a new compost tea making kit. I've had a makeshift version for a while, and I was like, look, as much as I'm doing this now, let me put together a little kit. It's got the little aerator and bubbler, so I'll be talking more about that once I get it out of the box and in service. We've got who else was there? Toolman Tim did his kick in the poverty mindset presentation, which he continues to update and grow and expand, and he's doing amazingly well. If you like cool patches, especially patches that are kind of like freedom-minded, libertarian-based, self-sufficient, all that kind of stuff, a little bit of conspiracy stuff, he's got a Patch of the Month club, and it's fun. I get his patches every month, and we have a lot of fun with that. So we swipe inside jokes and that sort of thing for patch themes. So and I also signed up for, because why not plug Tim, because he's one of the guys that has helped me get to where I am today. Tim's got a Patreon where he is exclusively posting certain interviews. So there's interviews, you won't find them anywhere else on YouTube or whatever. And I listened to the ones he did with Joel Salatin and John Pugliano of the Wealthsteading podcast. I listened to those on my way back home on Sunday. And it was just, every now and again, I just need, it's not that I have trouble being motivated, but I just need to feel like kind of like I am on the right path. And listening to Joel really, it reminded me of reading his books back in the early 2000s and wanting to do exactly what I'm doing right now. So even like recently when I've had a hard day or I'm frustrated or I'm tired, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I look back and I realize I am doing what I said and I knew needed to be done 2 decades ago. So it got put off a little bit, but I'm doing it. So taking care of this family land, improving it. We've got animals out here. We're restoring habitat. I am, able to have a kind of resilient household, and there's plenty of room for improvement and to grow things. But considering what we've been able to achieve since the fall of 2020, looking back, I'm pretty happy. So, yeah, look up Tim's Patreon if you like that stuff. It's absolutely well worth it. Otherwise, that the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival looks like one that I will plan on keep on doing. The only thing I'm going to do differently is I'm not sleeping in the Jeep anymore. They have RV camping there, so for a couple of nights the Jeep decided it was an RV. But the thing about the Jeep is, even when I get myself diagonal in the back of that Jeep, I am about 2 inches too tall. And it is rare that I can say that I'm too tall for something because I'm 5'6", but I can't quite stretch out and I get the feeling cramped. So I will probably figure out a Airbnb share type situation for future events out there. I'm going to be working on the same for Self-Reliance Festival. So since I got back home, the sheep needed to be moved right away. So I actually, the night I got home, I started deploying new fence. And pardon me a minute, I got to straighten somebody out here. Mr. 6 foot 25 inches. I am every bit of 5'6". Now I don't think I've shrank. I haven't actually measured in a couple of years, but I claim every stinking inch. I'm just saying. And I rarely hit my head. So there you go. There you go. Howdy, Pinky. Thank you for joining us. So I got back home. The sheep needed to be moved. The paddock I had them in was not as big as it needed to be while I was away, as I found out. And well, we had hay, so we still fed them some hay. It wasn't like they were starving to death, but they were ready to move, and they were kind of aggravated. So I got that. I got that tackled first thing the next morning, um, and they. So where we are, where the sheep are, well, where they were yesterday, um, was right close to where the hops operation is. So for those who aren't aware, my brother grows Cascade hops, and they are coming up right now. They're rhizomes, they're perennials, they're vines. They climb 25 feet, and they're little. Uh, Actually, they're called bines with a B. B is in boy, not V Victor. Bines, not vines. Bines. I just read that the other day. So I've been dumb all this time. But the hops are coming up. They're already 4 or 5 inches tall in some places. And normally, what we will do is, or more like my brother and his crew, will weed them down and then thin them out. So we keep the ones that are up on the crest of the mounding that they're on, and all the runners that come off to the side. We harvest those out and pot them up, and sometimes turn them into money or other good things. So one thing, if you want to grow hops, go ahead and get in with me. Email me and let me know, and I can get some reserved for you. I can just kind of keep a tally in advance, and when Tyler says it's time to be working on this, we'll get all that sorted out. But we usually have quite a few rhizomes that need to come out. Hops need full sun and really good airflow. Those are kind of, and the more you can let them climb, the more you'll get. 25 feet is kind of the standard. I had some at the old place, they only were able to climb 10 feet, but I got a bunch of hops off of it, and I, kept them for teas and that sort of thing. So, yeah, Brian, I'll get into hops more here in a minute. Brian's asking how hands off is it? Relatively speaking, that's one of the reasons why Tyler decided to do them as much as all the other stuff he has on his plate. So, we are going to attempt to use the sheep as weed control for the hop shard, and we so this hop shard is about an acre, and they're in however long those rows are, 10 feet paths between the rows. They're big paths because my brother will come through with the bobcat with a bucket or a corral thing, and somebody will be up in the bucket tying off the new hops vines. And then when it's time to harvest them, same thing in reverse. They just use a hedge trimmer and they cut those vines and drop them down to the ground. So we were reading some articles recently about how people do this, and we decided to do a little test run to see what was going to be true for us. So we put the sheep in with a small section of hops that we don't actually harvest because they smell like garlic. It's some Canadian variety. The others smell great. Garlic hops, kind of gross. And sure enough, the sheep ate them. They ate the tender plants. Now they're going to come back up. That's not a big deal, but you don't want them continuously being chewed down. So what this article, I think it was from Cornell, said is that once your hops are trained a few feet up the lines, then you can put the sheep back in for weed control, because that's kind of our biggest battle out here. It's mostly the Johnson grass. The Johnson grass comes in hardcore, thick. It gets really tall. I mean, in some places it's almost 5 feet tall. It shades out a lot of stuff, and it's just, and the only real way to deal with it is to get in there and hand pull it, because once the vines are up, you can't weed eat anymore. So, but we're going to have to wait until the vines are relatively robust before we can reintroduce sheep. It's kind of like with any young, tender thing. That's what every animal always goes for. It's the tastiest thing. Animals always eat dessert first. I think that's something Joel Salatin says. So to them, those tiny little tender hops vines, which actually look quite a bit like asparagus when it first comes up, it looks like a very slender asparagus. Those were apparently tasty. So They will not be in the hops yard for most of April. Probably by the end of April is when Tyler plans to get everything strung up, and then we'll reintroduce for a couple of days of weed control. So I wasn't really planning on talking about hops so much, but people are interested, so here we go. Hops are relatively hands off. I would say a little bit more work than cultivating comfrey, with the amount of kind of, you can kind of count on, if you have an acre, you can kind of count on spending a couple of days getting your poles up. So in our case, Tyler mostly used, there were a few old telephone poles he was able to get a hold of, and mostly what we use up here is locust. So we'll get about like an 8 or 10 inch locust, take it down, cut it to the length. They're buried about 5 feet. He does use an auger attachment on the Bobcat, drops that pole in, and then they've got big cable guy wires on all ends. And then the guide wire, so it's in a big anchor. It's actually one of those, I think they're used for anchoring mobile homes. I've seen them before. But anyway, giant, big, anchor that you crank into the ground. Guy wire goes up, and then at the top of each pole is an eye bolt. Big, heavy wire goes through all the eye bolts, comes back down the other side, and then he just uses like a heavy-duty twine to tie them off. And then there's these hooks. They're not exactly like the big landscaping staples, but it's like a hook, and there's actually a specific tool that drives this hook, or it's more like a pin, and you pin that down into the ground. And they're like a real thin, I'm trying to remember, they're metal, but they're very thin, and they basically, rust and go away, or turn into rust oxide in the soil, because you have to do these year after year, so you don't want all these pins collecting in your soil. And there's like it's got a T handle, and it's got a little groove, and you fit that in there and you just push it right down. Pretty straightforward. So your labor is going to be tied up in your initial build, and then, which is really something with a machine and a couple of buddies, you could probably knock it out in a weekend. You're probably going to need maybe a couple tons of gravel to backfill some of these holes. Just kind of depends. Like I said, bury those 5 feet. So there's 20, actually, so I think it's 20 feet above ground, 20 or 5 feet underground. And then when we planted them, I mean, these have been going on for a decade or more at this point. When we planted them, we just had a bunch of people out here, and Tyler showed everybody how to plant them. And you plant once and you're done. And then at that point, you're just kind of thinning. You do need to control the weeds early on. And, drip irrigation would be the way to go, which is what Tyler has set up. Harvest depends timeline. This is where you have to really watch carefully. So these are ready to harvest when the little flower cones, you can see the little yellow oils beginning to form on like the last few at the base of the cone. Like you kind of peel the cone open just a little bit, and you can see, and you can smell it too. It's called there's terpenes, and then there's lupines, I think, is the other oil. So, and you need to harvest them when the weather has been dry. You don't want to harvest them when they've been wet. You will have mold and everything will be ruined. So it kind of gets to the point where you're just sort of watching day to day, and you kind of have to be ready. You don't want to be going out of town or be super tied up in a bunch of stuff, because it's kind of a weird window. And if you wait too long, they just start to dry out, and those oils are not as volatile, or whatever you want to call it. They're not as rich and aromatic. So, but yeah, when it's harvest time, Tyler just goes along, uses an extendable hedge trimmer, cuts those lines, everything drops down to the ground. We bundle them up, throw them in the dump bed, and he actually takes them down to whichever of the local breweries who he's built relationships with over the years. The local breweries will they'll throw them in the vats right away. Like Tyler will be communicating with them, so Tyler takes the vines over, and everybody who helped pick gets like a free pint of beer or something like that. So you get people helping you pick, which is great because that's a little bit tedious, but it's kind of like, shucking corn or breaking beans. If you got somebody to talk to while you're doing it, it doesn't suck at all. Uh, and then they go directly into the batch. So this is one of those things where if you can build relationships with local breweries, if they understand that you can't give them you can't tell them months out they will be ready on this date. But if they're the kind where you can say, hey, we're getting within a few days, they can start pulling together their stuff to start a batch, and then bang, they're just dry hopped right into the vat or whatever version of a beer that they're making. So I messed with them a little bit back when I still drank and I still did home brew. I did some dry hop batches and they were really good. I mean, they were great, and I did those from little vines that I had growing off the end of my porch. So yeah, hops are really cool. They're really cool. You can also use them in teas. They kind of have a mild sedative effect on their own if you dry them and you use them in teas. They are kind of like chamomile. If you are allergic to ragweed, you may be allergic to things in this family as well. So watch out for that. The only thing that really can, I'm going to say really can muck them up is damp, stagnant air. So these hops are at almost it's the wide open portion of the property, very good airflow, full sun all the time, because there's also some kind of leaf fungus that can happen. So yeah, hops are great. They're really neat. I think they have a place on any property or homestead. They can make a really great privacy screen. That's kind of part of what I did on my old back porch, was grew them real thick and screen the south end of a screened in porch. And they're, you have a lot of kind of leftovers, like less than ideal ones that are like a little too small or whatever, and those are the ones we collect for teas. So yeah, it's worth it. You guys let me know if you'd like to plug in some vines. Brian, there is probably a spot at Tim's that we could grow them on if we just wanted to throw a few in. And the nice thing is that the deer don't mess with them. The deer just don't care at all, which is another plus. So that's one of the things my brother picked out to help get a little more income for the property to kind of help offset property taxes and stuff. That was something he started years ago when he needed something that could kind of run in the background, because he's also a very busy guy. So yeah, hops are cool. Holler at me anytime if you want to know more about hops. We've kind of been doing this for a little bit, and I'm really excited to see how using the sheep is gonna work into the whole mix. So continuing sheep news, once we discovered they were going to eat hops, we needed, to go to the next spot. So we did, I set up a paddock. We're heading now towards the southwest corner of the property, and I kind of got them into another little brushy area with about a quarter acre of pasture to roam in for 2 or 3 days. So they're looking pretty happy. And yes, sir, Mr. Brian, we'll talk to you later. Thank you for stopping in. I've got them in another one of these kind of thicket areas, and a bunch of what's coming up right now. It's mostly it's a crabgrass that grows in this portion for the most part. So they were so happy. They were, especially Primrose. So Primrose kicked up her heels. The lambs are stoked. So lamb count. So we wound up, I think everybody's had lambs. I don't think we're going to have any more for this season. We've got 8 lambs. I only think we have 1 ram lamb. We may have 2, but I have tried to keep track of what everybody is, and I think we just wound up with the 1. So that is fantastic. All the mamas are doing great. Everybody's starting to lose their hair. It's shedding season. Number 22 is really nappy looking right now. I I made sure she had stuff to rub on because it's just coming off of her in clumps, and she was rolling on the ground trying to get it off. So I'm sure that feels good. So next plan for them is I'm going to keep working them across this kind of 7-acre area roundabout. That's a rough number, but probably more like 5 of actual grazing and 1 addition from last year. So we're now on the second round of hitting these fields. I'm going to take the time to run fence through another wood line, brush line, whatever you want to call it, that's packed full of the usual problematic species around here: ground ivy, English ivy, privet, honeysuckle, and tree of heaven. So I'm going to blaze the trail through there like I did on the other portion and just let them keep doing their sheep thing. They work so hard. I appreciate it. The improvement to this property is already starting to show through. So I am going to evangelize sheep for sure from here on out. Pardon me while I wet my whistle here. So I'm not sure if I've ever told you guys before, but I have a turtle. I have a little red-eared slider named GT. He's about that big, and I've had him for almost 30 years, maybe 25. I got him before I started high school, so something like that, 25-ish. And I call him my misdemeanor turtle because I think it might be legal now, but at the time it was illegal to have a turtle. So I don't know. Hopefully the statute of limitations has expired. But anyhow, he's been an aquarium turtle for his entire life. And last year, now that we've got these in-ground ponds placed, I decided to see if we could introduce him to the outdoor pond. So I put him in the summertime, and he's been really, as far as I can tell, happy. He has more stuff to eat. He gets a hold of more bugs and things like that. Of course, he gets a little bit of turtle food. He's got logs to float on. He's got cover. And it's kind of situated where he can't, I think, actually get out. He can rest and he can bask, but he can't get out because if he gets out, he could be in some real shit. So we did this. And then, of course, over the winter time, I expected him to, we left him in there, left him in the pond, left all the leaf duff and all that stuff in the bottom, all the muck that collects, so he could hibernate and or brumate, which there's a little bit of a difference between the two. More likely he brumates. And when we had the crazy cold, snow, ice, sub-zero temperatures, I was going out there twice a day and busting a hole in the ice with a sledgehammer so my turtle didn't run out of air. So we've been waiting. We've been waiting to see if he's going to reemerge. I didn't go digging around in the pond. I was just like, let's just see what happened. I just decided I was going to take a chance, let the turtle live in a pond like a real turtle instead of him being in an aquarium. And I am 90% sure I saw him the other day because he's very wary now that he's outdoors. He knows, like, he spooks easily. So, I saw something out of the corner of my eye walking past the pond, poking out from above the water line, and then I heard the splash of him submerging himself. So turtle's awake. Turtle is awake after undergoing quite the winter. He probably kept waiting for it to actually warm up. Of course, that water is going to stay colder being, actually in ground. So I reckon his little turtle systems woke up when they needed to. So that was kind of cool. And next time he pops up, I'll try to get a photo of him and show you guys Mr. GT. He is a pretty cool turtle. Also around here, got the first mow done. Nothing real exciting there. I just kind of wait until I try to let a few things set some seed first, grass wise, before I mow the immediate yard, the area that the sheep don't get grazed in. And I also got the fodder trees put in. So Pippin's got turtle power. Yes, I love me some Ninja Turtles growing up. I have to say, I still watch one now and again on YouTube. I'll watch an episode while I'm doing dishes or something. Yeah, I've always loved turtles. They're kind of my spirit animal. They're they're just such cool creatures. I like how ancient they seem. I feel like turtles are exceptionally wise and creatures that have seen a lot. So I've got these fodder trees planted. Um, they arrived while I was out of town. I just asked Angel. I said, throw them in a bucket of water. They'll be okay. And they're bare root, so they're still mostly dormant. They're starting to actually bud just a little bit. So I ordered these from rareplantstore.com. That's Nick Ferguson. He's another designer, permaculture consultant guy, and he's been kicking up his nursery offerings big time. So if you need fodder trees, fuel wood trees, things like that, um, things to build silvopasture, rareplantstore.com. So I got the 36 tree package. So that was 12 lace bark elm, 12 white mulberry, and 12 hybrid willows. And I cut in a swale. I don't know how long it is. I didn't really count. About 35 feet. Cut in a swale on contour just off of the garden. I needed to put it, it's actually just below the turtle's pond. I needed it where I could keep track of these trees early on through this part of the season. When we're going to get hot, I'm going to get busy. And I needed to be sure, either I could water them easy, Angel could water them easy, as well as being passively watered. So it took me about an hour to build the swale, mostly use my little tiller. So it's only, it's about 24 inches wide through the berm on the downhill side, of course. And then Nick actually recommends using a drill auger, which I don't know how I don't have one of these. I really need to get one. But you can get them in various sizes, but you can run one on like a hammer drill and just bore down. And because these roots are small and tapered, you don't need this massive hole right away. But I did have a pretty big drill bit that I did not care to run into the ground. It actually was rusted. I think it was something I found somewhere. So I threw that drill bit on, kind of cranked it around, widened the hole out, and that's how I planted all those trees. And it took no time at all. So I planted them, watered them in real good, mulched the heck out of them, and they continue to look happy. All of my vining plants, or not all, but most of my vining plants that at least came from viable seed are up in the greenhouse. Everything's starting to get its the vining plants are getting their true leaves. Tomatoes and tomatillos still have their baby leaves, but they're they're underway. And most everything else, if it wasn't going to sprout, I've decided it was just old seed or whatever. So that'll I'll just replant. I'll just use the same everything and just plant probably another round of tomatoes and other sorts of things like that. The peas are coming up, the beets and the radish, all that stuff is coming up. If you haven't really planted your garden yet, you can definitely still, you can still start seeds for sure. And you can do your root crops. You can do your cool weather vegetables. You can do your lettuces, spinach, collards, things like that. Brassicas were probably a little too late for that. Mine are actually already starting to bolt. I am probably going to start feeding the most of the brassicas to the sheep and to primrose. I'll let a couple of each go to set seed so I can have that, but otherwise I'm going to need to start freeing up that garden space. Oh, let me catch up on my list here for a minute. That was everything. That was everything. I don't have a good this weekend sigh. Nobody did anything bizarre, which, considering I drove halfway across Tennessee, or not halfway, but drove 2 miles west of here and then headed north in the Bowling Green, had all that drive time, and nobody did anything bizarre. So I haven't been to the dump yet. I haven't been to the mulch yard, so I haven't had that opportunity to encounter somebody being a ding dong, but we'll just have to save that one for next week. The main thing I wanted to talk about tonight, now that I've got my list caught up, was kind of an unexpected result of having started my own business, of learning how to grow it, learning from others, having mentors, I always plan to have mentors. I'm always going to find people who are doing better than me, more successful than me, so I can learn from them and continue to grow this business in the direction that I want. And because I've been at this officially for 5 years now, I by proxy, by people knowing what I do, I have people now coming to me asking for my help to help them grow their businesses or make other changes in their life, which is that was just not something I really planned on, but I'm actually really happy to fill that role. So I'm not going to throw out anybody's personal information just yet, but recently I had one friend um, come out, or actually messaged me and said they were interested in um, going a certain route after they get their insurance license to sell various insurances. And so we had them over along with some other friends who also started their own businesses. So we could kind of have like a meeting of the minds and help our friend out. And she was taking notes throughout. We had a lot of good ideas. We had a lot of out of the box ideas, and some cautions, some things to avoid, things to not worry about, things I thought were going to be a big deal. It turns out it's not. So as a general rule, the just start really is the way. And then it's actually okay to sort out a bunch of stuff on the fly. You do not have to have every question answered to know all of the regulatory stuff. I mean, in most cases, unless you're trying to go sell nuclear materials or something like that, I don't really care what your business is, but especially if it's in the realm of coaching others or content creation or providing some kind of service, some kind of intellectual or creative service, just start. Just grab you. And it's not, the website isn't even the first thing, really. I mean, if you've got the money and you can buy a domain name and just hang on to it, sure, do that. And I still, at this point, I still get more leads and new customers and new contacts off of word of mouth is kind of number one. I've kind of kept a loose track on this. Speaking to people in person at events and holding classes has been my second best method. And a distant third is any kind of traditional advertising, sponsored posts, anything like that. And I mean, and I'm operating within, a niche within a niche within a niche. So it's not like there's a ton of people looking for the services that I offer. And I learned early on not to bother trying to convince somebody that they needed my service. They either knew they wanted it or not. This is not the kind of thing you talk people into. And I know, and so coming at this from a permaculture perspective, I know those of us get really passionate about this field and we want to evangelize it to everybody, but I don't know if that's always going to work. So steering back to, being being a leader at this point is a little bit surprising, but I'm happy to fill that role. I've had another person reach out to me. Let's see, a few days back, and they're getting started in a similar field to me in another area, and they had questions about real specific stuff like bidding things and how to communicate and things like that. So I feel like at this point I've got enough under my belt that I'll be able to help them steer clear of quite a few frustrations that I've encountered. And kind of, it's not that we're going to avoid, growing pains, but if we can go into this with a little more perspective and knowing somebody's got your back, that's the big thing. I think that's the big thing I think I'm getting at here is, if I was not around other people who were also interested in building as much freedom into their lives by starting a business and taking direct control over how they earn money, if I didn't have all these people kind of backing me up in that direction, this would have been a whole lot harder. There were so many times that I was so frustrated, even though in the big picture, it wasn't a big deal. It just wasn't. At the time, I did not have that perspective, but I was able to talk to somebody like Nicole or Tim or Brian or any number of people within that community and say, hey, I'm having frustrations about this. Can I get your perspective and just kind of talk this out for a minute? And it always made it better. So all that to say, I'm happy to be supporting folks that are doing the same thing. I don't even care if it's in the same similar field of stuff that I'm into. I think there's plenty of abundance and opportunity for everybody out there. So I would be so stoked to see all of my friends, all of us just become business owners in one form or another, or at least have, alternative ways of taking care of our homes and our families. I think that's just kind of the enlightened, and that's the prosperous route going forward. I kind of feel like a certain level of corporate life and bureaucratic life is going to be a lot less useful and influential, and creative life, DIY life, is going to be taking its place. And I am fully here to experience that. I think that's pretty slick. So, guys, that's pretty much what I had to say this evening. Make sure I say hello to Pippin. Thank you so much for stopping in. Cormac, good to hear from you, buddy. I saw you've got an interview up with Stefan Sokoviak. I hope I didn't butcher his name too bad. Fella up in Quebec doing amazing permaculture-based orcharding. Highly recommend following his work if you guys haven't already. And Pinky stopped in. Good to see you, Pinky. Pinky has things with wings happening everywhere. So, and Hippocrates Garden, thank you so much for stopping in, you guys. Y'all know how to find me. If you can help me, please come help me. If I can help you, please let me know. Like I said, we'll be having the hops rhizomes. It's almost time to be splitting comfrey again, so that's available. And I almost forgot. I do have the foraging classes coming up. So we got one coming up tomorrow. If you're hearing this before Saturday morning and you're in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you want to come on a foraging class, you email me at strongrootsresources@gmail.com. And then I'm doing the big class on Eclipse Day at Self-Reliance Festival. The Monday after Self-Reliance Festival, just go to their website, look under classes. It'll be on there. From 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., we're going to have an in-depth foraging class on the property, walking around, and you're going to get some follow-up information to go with that class as well. Your admission comes with the ability to confer with me further about foraging aspects. So you guys keep an eye out for that. I do not think I'll be able to get another foraging class in here at home in April, but I am going to make every effort to do 2 every month through the fall here at home. So 2 in May, June, July, August, so forth. And then let's just keep it rolling. So if you guys are finding this kind of stuff useful, I appreciate your interaction. You know the drill. Please get it shared around. And you guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next time.